Hi everyone, and welcome to another powerful conversation with yet another powerful woman. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Michelle today. Michelle was one of the first people I reached out to and had a one-to-one conversation with many months ago now on LinkedIn. And it was probably one of the reasons why I carried on doing it. So I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Michelle today. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, Michelle. You're going to do a better job of that than I am. So please do tell us who you are, what you do, where you come from.
Okay, thanks so much for having me on, Claire. Yeah, I can remember our conversation. It seems so long ago now, but obviously I follow a lot of your content and stuff on LinkedIn, so it doesn't feel so long since we've chatted, even though. So yeah, my name's Michelle. I'm based in, live and work in Glasgow, always lived in Glasgow. I work in sports development. So my main job is coordinating the health walks across Glasgow, and they're sort of a health walks, themed walks, just a mixture of anything, all free, just to try and promote health and well-being for people that maybe don't. Although I come from a sporting background, for people that don't always want to go down the sport avenue or the team sport, they just want to get out and exercise. So yeah, so that's what I do. That's my main job, and aside from that, I do a lot of writing, which is kind of really sort of ignited during lockdown. So I still struggle to call myself a writer. So I say, I write. So yeah, so that's kind of, I'd say that's my, my real passion. As well as my passion to do my job well, of course. But aside from that, that seems to be kind of what I love doing and reading. So it's kind of hard to sum up because I never have any big damn plan. It's more about the daily things I do that then lead on to bigger things. I never have any great big ideas. It's all small things that then lead on. So sorry, I don't know if that's a great introduction.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've got loads of questions whizzing around in my head for you. And I think the one that I find most interesting is what sort of writer are you?
So I have written a children's book, which is due to be, I've got a publishing deal and it's going to be ready any time now. I've been sent the electronic so I can flip the pages. I didn't know that was it's all new to me. So so I did write that. That was mostly inspired. My daughter was 16 when she had my granddaughter. So she's now 7, and that was inspired by her because I realised, although my daughter was young, and it was the most painful thing watching someone so young, even though I was young, it's different. Watching her take on a role that felt so above her years, but we had a village, and I just realised in that moment that not everyone has that. So I wanted to write a book about love and sharing that love and harnessing self-love. So that's kind of one side of what I write. I've also had an article that's going to be featured in an anthology. So that's a real life story. So that's not going to be my name, just because it's personal. And so a lot of the other things I've written is more making sense of life, really, I suppose. It's lots of blogs and just kind of making sense of this life of ours. So so I don't. So to answer your question, I have no idea. What kind of? It's mostly genuinely. Although I say I wrote a children's book, I wrote a story that then became I never had any intentions of writing a book. I had a story that I just keep writing that eventually became what resembled a book, and then so it's mostly just me in my kitchen writing on my own.
Yeah. And so I'm always curious when people find something that is their passion. Have you always known that writing was a passion, or did it somehow emerge over time?
Yeah, I did always, when I was younger, I always loved writing, and it was more poems and stuff. And I've always loved reading. I'm just fascinated by life, by people, by what makes one person thrive and what makes another people get stuck. So I'm just fascinated by people. So I've always, but I'd say during lockdown, I had, this been quite a lot of life challenges that my work allowed me. I would just go to work and I would work and I didn't stop. I just kept going and going and keeping life busy. And then when lockdown happened, I had all this time and I had no idea what to do with all this that I had been so busy micromanaging myself through. And it was like, you know, when people say, I've heard people say it and I never really understood it, but the words just came. I never set out to write anything. It was, I just typed and typed and typed and the words just came, and that's what it's been like. And I think now I have a bit over 110,000 words on all different. So
I find that really interesting, because when you said earlier about how you know, you see what each day brings, and sort of that sort of sense of being present and in the moment. Do you have days when you wake up and you feel like writing, so therefore you just sit down and you let it come out, or do you set yourself specific times?
Yeah, I don't schedule in any time for writing. It's like an impulse. It's like I have to write. You know, I think I'm sure it's Liz Gilbert that says, you know, it's like, you know, like you're almost, there's days where you're kind of not trying to get away from it, but they just keep, the words just keep coming in, and you're like, I have to write this, you know. So no, I don't schedule in any time. It's something I've actually thought about doing, because I schedule in time for quite a lot of things in my life, like exercise, time with the people I care about, and I think it maybe would be beneficial to schedule that time, you know, to just make the space for it. But what I've done so far has worked. But I get, if I can't write, I need to write. Like,
I think it's really really interesting. I've been experimenting over the last few months with trying to be before I do, and I finding that really really fascinating and eye-opening, because there are definitely days when, I mean, I'm a natural doer, I'm very efficient, like to get things done, but there are days when it just doesn't feel right to do, and I can feel myself pushing against what I should be doing, if you like. And since I've given that up, and if I don't feel like doing, I sit and I do some meditation, or I light a candle, or go make myself a cup of tea, or stroke the dog, and sort of be more present. Then when the moments of doing come, my goodness, I mean, they're so much more productive and efficient, and they've been driven by the being. And I find it just really interesting as an experiment to be part of.
No, that I totally agree, Claire. And I think the luxury for me is that, you know, I don't have to. It is purely inspired by an intrinsic motivation to do it. I don't, you know, I've not earned a single pay. You know, I've submitted articles for a radio show, I've written stuff for homeless charity. I've never made a single penny, and I don't need to. It's not. So there's no pressure there's no deadlines, there's no, you know, and when I finally plucked up the courage to submit the children's book to a publisher, all the work was already done. So, you know, it wasn't like I was someone that was well known and I decided to write something and people were chasing me and wanted to be perfect. It just needed to be. Like, you know, and I had no expectations. Even now, I have no expectations of what it will be. You know, and there's something really nice about that. Like, you know, because I get paid to do my job, and I do my job, and then that it's almost like a hobby. So that I don't need to ever. It's purely all by choice, which feels lovely. You know. So I can imagine, because I think as well that sort of coincides with something I wrote yesterday, you know, the things that keep our cup filled up, basically. You know, some days, you know, like Friday was a kind of rough night on Thursday, and you know, so I love playing football, but I couldn't have played football on Friday. My energy wasn't there. I couldn't have went for a run. I went to a coffee shop and I ordered a coffee and a scone, and I sat with my book, and that's what I needed to do on Friday. And then I went for a walk Saturday I played football, you know, Saturday I didn't
Yeah.
want to go, and it's finding what works in that day. But I think it's so, what you say is so valuable, the
Yeah.
being, because we do, and I'm like you, I'm a doer, so don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
I can get caught
Yeah.
up, but thankfully for the things that I love doing, there's no pressure on me to do it, to make money
Yeah.
from it, which feels quite nice.
Yeah, no, definitely. And do you think that has reflected in, I mean, I have this sort of, I guess, preconception of what a publishing process would look like. And I have this image, probably triggered by childhood experiences of writing something and it coming back with, you know, red marks all over the place and everything. But was that whole sort of editorial process lighter and easier because you'd written from your heart when you felt like you wanted to write?
Yeah, because no one knew. I never told. So I worked on it for about a year and a half, and I never told anyone. I never even, you know, and even when I say it now, it's always like, I'm kind of always half laughing. I'm like, oh God, you know, and when they sent me the, you know, the electric, so how it will look in paper when they sent, and I could see my name, and I suddenly had a panic. I was like, oh, this is really, like, that's my name. Why did I use my name? Like, it's going to be out there and it's my name. Like, you know, because there was something, no one has seen it. No one, not my mum, not nothing, no one. I'm like, and now it's going to be, you know, now everyone's going to, but I think that did make it really nice that there was no big expectations. There was, you know, I was just not a top down, but I was just a nobody that wrote a story that became a book. I sent it, you know, and so it made it all so much easier. Whereas the more I know about it, and the more that I've done it, and the more people know now that I have, there's a wee bit more pressure than there was when it was just me, because I never told anyone until I sent it to a publisher. So the only person I told was my granddaughter, actually, and I read a bit to her, and she was like, Michelle, don't you think that sounds, she calls me Michelle, she was like, don't you think that sounds a bit sad? And I was like, it's not meant to be sad. So I had to change the angle, not the message. So she was the only person that knew, and then when I sent it, I was meeting my friends for coffee, and I was like, so did I tell you? And they were like, what? Like, how could you not have, you know, but it was something so nice about it when it was just me and in my kitchen doing my thing.
Yeah, no, exactly. So does that mean you have more plans for more books, or are you going with the flow on that one?
Yeah, well, because of the theme of the book, it's called A Heart Full of Love. So I have already got, you know, a sort of a theme of empathy, strength, you know, where you could go with that. So, but I've not, it's very loosely written. There's nothing, you know, concrete, because I've been writing more on sort of I don't want to say a memoir, but more, you know, like kind of piecing together all the blogs I had, you know, I've tried to format them and try and structure, but again, I don't know how I'll ever do anything with that. But it was from that I took the article that I submitted the girl was looking for the anthology. So I just took that whole chunk of that chapter out, sent it, and it's going to be featured. So so I've been spending more on sort of a life writing rather than and I suppose, if truth be known, you kind of think, I don't want to get ahead of myself, let's just see how that, you know, it kind of feels a bit above your station. Like, I know it's not great to say that, because we're all meant to be, you know, not having imposter syndrome, but I'm like, hey, let's just keep it real, Michelle, let's see how this goes, you know. So
and I can kind of see that there would be some links between the sort of direction of your writing and your day job as well, because sports have quite a strong mental health element to them. Have you found that one has helped inform the other as well?
Absolutely. I think sport has been, I had no idea when I was young, you know, and I'm watching the Women's World Cup now, and I'm so inspired by the changes. There just wasn't the opportunities available back then. Although there, you know, we could still play and stuff like, but I'm realizing the really strong. Like I'm realizing my love of sport is a real gift. Like, for the tenacity, the strength, the endurance. It all just transfers over, you know. I had no idea, like, if I just thought it was just what you do. You get up, you go play sport, and you go and train, and you commit all this time. I had no idea how that would then set me up for years to come.
Yeah. And do you, I mean, my understanding is that many more professional sports people, maybe it's reflected more in education as well, that there's a lot more emphasis on mindfulness and being present and having sort of control over your thoughts. So when there's disappointments, you know how you can sort of go through them. Do you notice that and see people being more receptive to that way of looking at sport as well?
Yeah, I've seen a lot, Claire. There's so many people on LinkedIn as well, so many males and females that have, you know, there's two males in particular that it was addiction. You know, they write a lot about addiction and their love of sport, and how their love of sport kind of got them when everything else was changing. They still had that, you know, a positive. And I think there's a definite. I mean, I studied sport and psychology and stuff as well, so I was always aware, just not as aware. But on Saturday when I played, after having quite a rough day on Thursday into Friday and playing football on Saturday, I realised I was not playing for 40 minutes. For that 40 minutes, you have no room for doubt, for fear, for worry. All you're thinking about is your next move, the ball, like getting the ball, you know. And I think it just neutralises the brain, you know. And as I said, and that's for anyone, whatever they do. Dance and it's football, but I know for dance and painting and, you know, I think that's the huge benefit. It's just giving your head that space, because you all just get clogged up in the overthinking, over analysing, you know. So I definitely think it does give you great tools for life.
I mean, I find it quite interesting because I don't know how many years I need to go back now. Sort of definitely within the last 10 or 5, I've started running, but I used to hate running, and it was more of a mental block than a physical block. I think I believed I couldn't run, and it just makes such a difference. I think it was running with somebody, running with my friend, that really helped turn the corner. And I'm training for a half marathon, which is not that far for some, but for me, that's like and it's still more a mental battle than a physical battle. I know that my body can do half marathon. But the question is can my mind do half a marathon? I'm pretty confident it can, but that whole sort of observing that sort of mental process over the years has been really, really interesting. And it's really interesting what you can do when you put your mind to it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like, half marathon is massive as well. I think sometimes now, because a lot of people do, you know, I'd say a lot more people are doing a lot more things. So people say like a half marathon, like you know, but it's huge. You know, the training that goes in prior to it, and like you say, the mindset on the day, knowing when you're wanting to give up, you've committed, so you're going to keep going. So I think it's, and I joined, even though I've always played football, people always naturally thought I would be able to run, but running, I only started running last May, because again, like you, I was, unless I was playing football, I didn't run. And it took me, and I've actually really enjoyed it. But you know, I just keep it easy. 5K max, and whatever time I want, listen to whatever podcasts I want. You know, but I have really enjoyed it. But people wouldn't believe me when I was like, I can't run. Like, I can run, play football, but I can't run. Like, it just felt so hard. Like, you know. So a half marathon, a huge respect.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, and I think a lot of that has been about letting go of expectations I put on myself, or judgments that if you do a half marathon, then it's only good if you finish within this sort of time, and it's like or you know, I would have said completing it without walking, it is you know, it has to be like, and it's like no, I've just let all of that go, and it's like I will cross that line even if I'm crawling, even if I had to stop for 5 minutes to recenter myself, even if you know, I don't care how long it takes. I don't care if they even closed the race before I finished. I will get across the line, and it's my own personal goal. And it's just such a different mindset to where I would have been several years ago.
Yeah, it's so liberating as well when you just, you know, when you just adopt that attitude. You're like, I'm just doing my thing, like however that looks to me. And it's just so freeing, I think, because we do get bound by expectations, and the minute you realise that you only need to meet your own, like it just sets you free from so much wasted energy.
Yeah. So you mentioned the inspiration for the book came from having your granddaughter. Are there any sort of other events in your life or challenges that you've had to overcome that have set you up to be where you are today, do you think?
You know, it's funny, Claire, because it comes up quite a lot, and I think where I am now is where I was always supposed to be. Falling in love young in a very, you know, crazy kind of love is the only way I can describe it. Took me on a path I never thought even possible. But and again, I think the strength to say who I was came again from my love of sport. I had a deep rooted knew who I was, like even in the worst moments, and I think that always kind of kept me fighting for more, you know. So I don't know that I think we are who we are. We just return to yourself. You know, you can just get lost along the way in a life that's maybe just not aligned to who you are and who you've always known yourself to be. But it doesn't change who you are. It just changes things around you and makes life a lot harder. But if you dig deep, you're still there. Like, we all know who we are. It's just that we forget. So, I would say the challenges, you know, and in some ways, you know, you don't want to say you're grateful for, because I wouldn't wish that. I wouldn't want it for my girls. I wouldn't want it for any young girl. But on another side, you've got two choices that's happened, and you can either just keep looking for the silver linings on, well, you know, when joy comes, I'm all in, you know. The smallest things make me happy, you know. The simplest things, I need nothing major to make me happy. I'm just quite by nature a happy person, and I think that's because I've known pain, so but I just don't stay there. Like, and sometimes when I think back to certain, and I'm like, I can't even imagine what I was feeling in that day to be so upset. You know, I can't imagine ever feeling that ever again. Do you know? But
And how do you think your sort of way of being and your outlook and perspective has influenced your granddaughter?
I'd say massively influenced her, because, you know, the cycle's been broke already, which is, you know, gives me great comfort. And I think for her, you know, when I look at her now, and I just think, I feel like the best version of myself, and I have all this love to give and all this knowledge to share and a sense of protection, you know, but I'm not in the overwhelming fear of it all, like where you can be when, you know, when things have happened that you didn't plan or anticipate, and you can get stuck in the fear of, you know, what will happen, what if this happens to, whereas I feel like I'm out the other side of that, and I'm, you know, the self-fulfilling prophecy is, let's make this life as good as we possibly can, and keep feeding her with all the greatest messages. So I'd say I just hope that it's, you know, it's changed the course for her.
I think that's really, really, really powerful, because I think there's so much that's passed down through generations that we're unconscious of, and we just grow up, we expect it, just believing that's the norm, and it's actually takes massive courage and strength to look inwards and to make your own choices about what feels right, and to consciously break those patterns. But I don't think there's anything more rewarding than doing that.
I think, I think so, Claire. And I think some days I think a lot of the time we all just do what we do, and we don't realise like how much commitment or strength or we've given to grow, to heal, because resentment, bitterness, hate was never an option for me. I was like, I cannot go down that road. It needs to be the alternative, But it was just that I think I was reading, because I read a lot as well, so that's helped, and I listen a lot, and that's helped. I was reading Bruce Lipton's book, The Honeymoon Effect, and he talks a lot about the kind of biological energy and stuff as well, and how you can kind of change the course. And I remember thinking, there's a page in it, and he's talking about someone speaking to their grandkids, and I'm thinking, imagine I never left, imagine I never committed to heal, imagine I never committed to grow, imagine I just stayed there and stayed upset. What would life look like for everyone? And it was kind of that moment I got quite emotional when I was reading it, because I just thought, that's what I need to do. I need to do this for everyone else. I need to keep going. But I never really thought what I was doing, if that makes sense, and the impact it would then have, in generations to come,
Yeah. So what sort of daily or weekly self-care practices do you put in place to make sure that you stay in this sort of positive mindset, energy?
Yes. So every day I get up, and I have this was I only implemented this a year ago, and it's been about a year and a half ago, and it's been by far the best thing I've ever done, because life can be unpredictable, we all know that. Everybody's got their different battles, but and I felt like I was getting up and I was on the back foot, straight away. I was reading messages and trying to problem solve, so I decided that I'd get up an hour early, and I wouldn't look at my phone. And I got up and I do, it's like 1.5 minute plank, 3-minute wall sit, 25 press ups, a full body stretch, and 5-minute meditation. And during that time, I'll list things that I'm grateful for, and my intentions for the day. Who do I need to show up for? Who do I want to show up as? And just the kind of greater things you're grateful for in life, so I do that almost every morning, and that's been and then I get ready for the day. So I always go up and make my bed as well. So I make my bed, then I go straight in the living room, straight in the plank, then I get ready for the day. So then I'm on the front foot. Whatever the day brings, I've set the scene. Doesn't mean I'm never going to get knocked off kilter, but I can reset much quicker because I'm almost ahead of the game. So I do that above everything. I always, I walk generally 10,000 steps a day. And I usually choose a podcast or something to listen to. I read hot baths, just in no particular order. It might be a coffee with a friend, it might be a coffee on my own. As I said, I think it's important not to have one thing that works, because what works one day doesn't work the next. It's a full menu of things that work, and knowing on that day what's going to work for you. What's being able, like you say, being able to say, what's going to help me today, and sometimes that's a run, and sometimes it's a walk, and sometimes it's a hot bath. It's a full menu of things to do, and I do actually have what works, well on the worst days, because I think it's so easy when life is good to know what works. It's when you're really challenged, you can lose sight of all the things that matter. So
I mean, it sounds like your routine's very similar to mine. I think there's very many things I would give up before I gave up my morning routine. It's just the day is just always so much better when I've done it. It doesn't feel right. It feels like putting your shoes on the wrong feet if I haven't done any of those things in the morning. So I think it's so super important.
I'd say so. As I said, I think that's definitely one of all the years and all the things I've done, it's definitely been one of the best things I've implemented, I'd say.
Yeah. And just to finish off, do you have a motto or something that you live by that you can share with us?
Yeah, I always love, so there's two things. I love the quote, life is not about avoiding the storms, it's like dancing in the rain. I think you really do have to, because life will happen. So I try and stay away from the why me, and just, right, let's, try not go down that rabbit hole. And the other thing is just, I say this to my granddaughter all the time, like when she was young and she would say, oh, that boy's on a pink bike, the way kids notice. And I say, we just let people do their own thing. Just let people do their own thing. And that's probably the biggest thing I live by, is just believing that everyone's just trying their best, and just let people do their own thing. And, just showing compassion, more compassion and less judgment. So they're the kind of, sorry, I know that doesn't quite sum up one
I
motto.
think, really beautiful. Yeah, and I love that. I could talk to you for ages about these things. There's so many overlaps in our thinking and ways of being. So I greatly appreciate your time. I will make sure that we share all your different links. I can't wait to hear when your book's coming out. I think I'd probably really enjoy reading it. So I
thank you
for that, and look forward to being able to help promote it a bit for you as well. So
thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a complete pleasure to speak to you.
Yeah, same. I know. I'm like, I could just hear from the but no, thank you so much, Claire. I appreciate you inviting me on, and it was lovely chat. As I said, it doesn't feel so long since we've chatted, because we're always connecting and following, like you say, we're very like-minded, and so no, thank you again for inviting me on.
My pleasure. Thank you.